Good day, Crime Talk aficionados. This is Crime Talk on our Tuesday night live. My name is Scott Reisch. Thanks for tuning in. For those of you who have not watched before, my name is Scott Reisch. I am a practicing criminal defense attorney here in the state of Colorado, and we have our channel, Crime Talk. And we'd like to think that it is the most unbiased, fact-driven, true crime channel on, well, basically the planet, at least on YouTube. That's for sure. And we try to bring you the facts as they are and the law. And it's always usual. It's always funny to see people get upset with me when sometimes they don't like the law or they don't like the facts, and I give my opinion about a particular case. And sometimes I get people upset with me on both sides of a case. So you know I must be doing something right by just giving the facts. And also, we just went over, before we started, over 144,000 subscribers as of 6 p.m. Mountain Time here in the great state of Colorado. And in the lifetime of our channel, a little over 2 years, 26 million views. So we think that's kind of exciting for something we thought, well, we'll give this a try. And, you know, if we get a few thousand subscribers, that would be pretty good. And so here we are. And now we're talking about everything that's going on in the world as it relates to crime. Now, obviously, a lot of news lately. We have received a lot of new subscribers because of that guy named Chris. We can't mention his last name because the YouTube people will then demonetize everything that we talk about. Not sure why, but the reality of it is that people in one side of that particular family do not want anything said. They've had channels taken down, nothing here, because we simply have provided the facts. No strange theories, no bad mouthing everybody. It's simply the facts. You all are very smart. You all are very smart, and you can decide, the conclusions to reach for yourself. But let's do it on facts that are pretty much, verifiable and what would be admissible in court. That's what we like to think about in cases. Let's think like a trial lawyer. There's lots of cases going on right now where there are missing people. People want charges brought. But, for example, if there's no body, it's tough to do that. Let's think like a trial lawyer. How do you prove that someone's actually deceased if you can't show that they have a body? It's very, very difficult unless, like, we had down there in Colorado Springs, or actually it wasn't Colorado Springs. It was Cripple Creek down there where you had an eyewitness to saying, well, there is no body because, we burned it. That was the Patrick Frazee matter. So we have a lot of those cases hanging out right now. We still have the, like I said, the guy named Chris. A lot of new people are looking into this based upon the Netflix documentary American Killer, A Family Next Door, because most people hadn't even heard of that case unless you lived in Colorado. I mean, there was a lot of people outside of the state. Obviously, it was very popular, a lot of interest given what's taken place on that particular case, the whole scenario of a man that's ultimately pleads guilty to the death of his wife, two young, precious little children, and then an unborn child. And a lot of people just don't hear that. If you're not, really a true follower of, what's going on in the world, true crime, so to speak, it gets lost in the daily, the daily busyness of the day, and you just don't think about it. And so with the Netflix case, a lot of people have said, oh my gosh, I hadn't heard about this guy named Chris, and what he did was absolutely horrendous. And so, fortunately, for those people, when they Google and to try to find more information, and as we talked about today on today's show, there's a lot of information from that documentary on Netflix that wasn't presented. Well, guess what? We have it all in all of our playlists and we have it broken down, I think, pretty nicely. We have all the interviews related to Chris giving interviews while he's been in custody, trying to fill in the blanks, so to speak, being very honest with the detectives. We have all the interviews in their entirety, not just the few minutes that were played on the documentary. Now, don't get me wrong. I think the documentary was actually very well done, but I think it left out a couple of parts. There was a little bit of a glossing over as it related to Nicole Kessinger. And I think if a lot of people hear those interviews with her, they certainly may view her in a little different light, so to speak. Then additionally, I think one of the most popular videos that we have, or audio recordings, is the interview with the babysitter. And in that particular interview, just how everything seemed normal and it was fine. And what time he came home, and next thing you know, those children weren't going to be there the following day, which is absolutely terrible. I guess they were there in the early mornings, but they had to go out to a tank battery site. And, that documentary, American Killer, A Family Next Door on Netflix, did not, I think, truly bring the scope of what he did. His wife is off in a shallow grave, and then he takes those two little girls, and after suffocating them, according to his version of the events, he then stuffs them into that tank battery, one each. And when you read the actual autopsy report, the reports where the officers were removing those children from the tank batteries, it just, as a human, nobody could justify that in any way whatsoever, particularly to one's own children. It's just unthinkable. It's just absolutely unthinkable. So anyway, that's where that case about Chris is. And like I said, if you mention his name, suddenly all your videos get demonetized because of that. So not that I'm bitter or anything like that, but it's just a reality. So for those of you who have just joined us, once again, my name is Scott Reisch. This is Crime Talk. We do our weekly live show every Tuesday night, 6 p.m. Mountain Time. Try to do it on Tuesday, unless a trial comes up and interferes with that. And then immediately right after this, we will do our Patreon group. If you haven't become a Patreon, you can sign up. After this show, you'll be sent a link for our Patreon, and we will continue the conversation. Additionally, when we do the Patreon, you can call in. We can have a real conversation, not just chat as it goes along. So we can talk about, that guy named Chris. We have Lori and Chad still out there in the great state of Idaho. Not much is going on there, but they do have, motions hearings and deadlines coming up real soon. But the motions have been, what's the word I'm looking for? Haven't been made available to the public as of yet. Anything that has been turned over. Also, we can talk about the Breonna Taylor matter. We talked about that a little bit today. The whole issue about the release of the grand jury material is still going on. And, one of our questions here this evening, Alan Bell, how rare is it for grand jury proceedings to be released? I thought they were always secret. Well, Alan, you're correct. Most of the time, grand jury proceedings are secret. I cannot think of maybe one other case that I can think of where all the materials were completely released to the public. It just simply doesn't happen. And in this particular case, the Attorney General in Kentucky said, I'll give you all the audio. You can take a listen to it. We have all of that grand jury material available for you all here on Crime Talk. You can go to the Breonna Taylor grand jury. What do they call the playlist? My gosh, the playlist, and you can listen to everything that the grand jurors heard during the course of the material being presented to the grand jury. The only thing that hasn't been released thus far is the actual basically charging of the grand jury, where they say, here are the charges that you'll consider, or the deliberations. And I cannot imagine any judge is going to release the deliberations as it relates to a grand jury. It's simply not going to be done. The whole purpose of the grand jury is that they would be done in secret. That's the way it's always been. And so I did a little research, and it refreshed my memory on a lot of the stuff that most states, particularly east of the Mississippi, and the federal system use the grand jury as a regular part of the charging process. And as we've talked about, it's only there to establish probable cause. Now, kind of in the Western states, so to speak, you can be indicted by a grand jury or complaint and information. Complaint and information, you get a preliminary hearing, which is a screening device to make sure a probable cause exists. And when you get indicted in the federal system, it's just basically taken that a grand jury, these citizens, the peers of the defendants there, have found probable cause. In some states, like here in the state of Colorado, you can ask the court to review the transcripts to see if probable cause actually exists. And every now and then the court will say, hey, I was looking and there was no evidence presented on count 35. Not exactly sure how count 35 got to be submitted here, but no evidence presented. That count is dismissed. And the grand jury process, we've talked about this before, but for those of you who haven't heard it, it's very straightforward. You qualify grand jurors just like you do a regular jury, except you're not going to hear one case. You're going to hear a series of cases over a period of time, however long the grand jury is impaneled for. Usually, let's say 6 months or a year. And they meet once, twice a week, maybe. And their time is very limited. And whether it's a quick case where someone was accused of, let's say, assaulting someone, the detective would come in and say, I'm the reviewing detective, and defendant A hit victim B, and therefore we're charging them with felony assault. There was a gun involved. We found the gun. That's all they do. Grand jurors receive a bill saying, we'd like to indict him on this. Grand jury doesn't get to say, you know what, I think we should go a little less serious, or I think that we should go a little more serious in charging. It doesn't work that way. The grand jury listens. Has evidence been presented to their satisfaction for the charges that have been submitted? That's it. And then the grand jury signs it. It's a true bill, and it's now presented, and the person will be arrested and charged based upon those particular charges. So this particular grand juror in Kentucky, who thinks that he should be able to tell the questions that people asked while they were deliberating, I don't think it's going to happen. I just don't see a judge doing it. It's meant to be in secrecy. The whole reason is so that the grand jurors can sit and not have to worry about being influenced or intimidated in any particular way. And if grand jurors are identified, they could be retaliated against for doing their job. All right. Grand jurors, they get a small stipend. They're members of the community. And so I just don't understand or see why anyone thinks they need the deliberation process. The bottom line is charges were presented. Only charges were presented as it relates to one officer in the Breonna Taylor case. Right, wrong. You know what? There's a remedy for that. If you don't like it, vote the attorney general out, and all of his deputies will be fired when he leaves office. But that's the way the system works. And the fact that the grand juror, or I'm sorry, the attorney general released the grand jury tapes, I think shows he's got nothing to hide. He's like, here it is. Knock yourself out. And yes, some people will never be satisfied with the outcome of the grand jury. The family members of Breonna Taylor won't be happy and have said that they want charges filed. But I just don't see that's going to happen unless there's some new information. But I assure you, all their crime scene investigators, their detectives, federal agents have gone over that crime scene. And if they thought that they could make a case, don't you think they would do it? This would be their 15 minutes of fame. But they also have an ethical obligation, which is greater than their ability to make headlines. And a prosecutor has a duty only to bring a case if they believe ethically they can prove that case beyond a reasonable doubt with the evidence that they have when they charge the case. Not we're going to charge them and then go build a case and see if we can't get anything better. Doesn't work that way at all. So they made the right decision. Guess what? Not everyone is going to like the decision at all, but that's the way it is. Listen, you want justice, don't go to the court system. All right. You're only going to have one party go away happy when you go to court. All right. There's no compromises. It's literally, for the most part, winner take all. That's why things settle. In civil cases, things settle. In criminal cases, you go to trial when say your client absolutely didn't do it, or they make such a ridiculous offer. You're like, fine, prove it. Okay. So the court is not where you're going to get justice, so to speak. And so hopefully the Breonna Taylor family, obviously they will never be able to bring their daughter back. You know, I wish that was possible, obviously, but you can't. So the next best thing that our legal system has done to be able to make that right is the city has settled. They paid $12 million. You know, that's a lot of money. I mean, let's face it. The attorney probably took 50%. Maybe he took a little less. But let's say he took 50% just for, easy math. That still leaves them $6 million. It's a personal injury settlement. Guess what? They don't pay taxes on that. So assuming the attorney didn't take 50%, or if he did, they still get $6 million. They don't have to pay taxes on that. That's probably more money than they've made in their entire lifetime. Yes, it's not going to bring their daughter back, but it will certainly, it's the remedy that our court system has brought to make sure that people are compensated when somebody is, there's a wrongful death case. And in this case, the city settled before it got to court because it maybe would have been more. It maybe would have been less. Unknown exactly, but that's why people settle, for the unknowns. People don't go to trial in civil cases for a few thousand or even $10,000, $20,000. You have to be so far apart because the time, resources, and energy to put that case together, people have no idea. We have a civil case that's preparing right now. We probably have 500 hours of time into it. And, they are time consuming. People do not realize how much work goes into that. Everybody thinks you just show up for court and magically, there's no work there. That's not the way it works at all. Suing for a catchphrase. I hope you're kidding. No, not really. I'm missing the opening of some affidavits. Chris will never get out. I agree as it relates to that. Let's see here. I'm sure you're extremely intelligent. I was teasing Scott teaches me new words. I am as educated, therefore I learn from him. And yes, I could have swore the other day I said absentia. Some people said I said abstentia. It's absentia. But thank you all for correcting it. I know I'll have you all have my back if I would make an error, mispronounce something. I want to thank everybody for that. Let's see here. Scott, who would you retain as counsel? From Christine Bowen. It would depend. It would depend on the case. I know lots of great attorneys, but hopefully I'll never need one. That's for sure. Let's see here. Oh yeah. See, I have an ideal court. Is expensive. That's right. I've learned to lawyer. That's right. Police want to talk to you. Lawyer, lawyer, lawyer. That's what you say. You've got to be absolutely certain about it. Bottom line. Now, the other case that we were talking about over the last 2 days is this Reagan Hancock case, where it's a fetal abduction. And in this particular case, not a whole lot of details are coming out regarding the woman that, harmed Miss Hancock and stole her baby. But fetal abduction, a little more common than you think it would be, as always. It's just crazy what people will do, and the fact that they think they're going to get away with it. But she's now in custody in Oklahoma. Everything went down in Texas, and unfortunately, the baby did not make it. Met the similar fate as Miss Hancock, but apparently, child was brought in, and I think somebody saw her on the side of the road, and what was her excuse? Said that there was some sort of emergency and what have you. Let me see if I can pull that up really fast, because it was just the whole story just didn't make sense, and of course that's why the police didn't buy the story that were taking place. It's just oh, I know where that was. Yeah, hold on 1 second here. I just want to make sure I get this. It's I guess I can think of the case we had in Boulder regarding fetal abduction. We have the one down in Houston where the woman was a friend. This apparently seems to be the same case as it relates to the Hancock matter as well, because apparently they knew each other. The facts are still coming in. But the woman who took the baby claimed she'd given birth on the roadside when when she was taken to the hospital, which is just unbelievable to me. Yeah. Miss Parker was her name. Taylor Parker, 27, taken into custody in Oklahoma on charges of first-degree murder, kidnapping. Who does that? That just makes absolutely no sense to me. I can't imagine why anybody would want to do that. So let's answer a couple more questions here as we can. Scott, any chance of a Canadian case coverage or two? We can certainly try. Ryan, we'll see what we can do. I know we have lots of subscribers from Canada, and we can certainly try to do that. Let me give Frank the secret code here. We made the mistake of ordering food, and apparently only half of it arrived. So now that we know that Frank's other half of the meal has arrived, because we do that. We try to make sure we feed Frank here every Tuesday night to keep him happy. Scott, do inmates on death row have the right to choose their method of execution? No. No. The states, by statute, if they still have a death penalty statute, dictates how people will die. Some states have a choice. I believe Utah, for example, comes to mind, where I think you can still do a firing squad or the electric chair. So yeah, it's no, you don't get to do it. You don't get to do it that way. But the statute tells how that's going to happen. Scott, still no charges in the South Dakota Attorney General case. They released his 911 call today. Well, Danny, thank you. I'll have to listen to that. That's the case of the South Dakota Attorney General, who was just happening to driving home one night late from a political fundraiser, where if anyone's ever seen anything in politics, one thing there's no shortage of at all the cocktail receptions is liquor. So the South Dakota Attorney General is driving home. thinks that he maybe hit a deer, but then takes his like chief of staff back the next day. Ooh, just happens to find a body, not the deer, which would make me think that maybe you thought you maybe hit a person that night and you freaked and you panicked and you left and you went back the next day and you knew you had to report it. But at least that alcohol was out of your system. That's what the cynical person would say. No information has been released, but of course, the attorney general, I think, was having people from his office review this case. So I'm sure it'll come up completely okay. Hopefully there'll be a thorough accident reconstruction so they can see. They get a lot of data from the cars these days. It's actually very, very, a lot of information that can be retrieved from those data boxes as far as speed at the time of impact. It's amazing the amount of technology that exists on so many cars today, even cars that you wouldn't think would have a lot of that stuff. So yeah. Let's see here. Feminine, thank you. Appreciate you for watching. Richard Scott, To Kill a Mockingbird is the movie as good as the book? I believe it is, Richard. Absolutely. And we were thinking about doing that, and we're probably going to finalize that later this week. Maybe we can do a book club night. And I think the first book should be To Kill a Mockingbird because, well, frankly, it's just a really good book, and the movie's not bad itself. It's made me want to be a lawyer. And so I think that maybe we'll do that. There seems to have been a lot of positive feedback from that as well from a lot of people that want to do that. I think that'd be interesting. Maybe we could do that like on a Zoom call or something where people can actually interject or something along those lines. So we'll see. No news on Mr. Rittenhouse. He's still in Illinois fighting extradition. We'll see. His attorneys want to get the case dismissed, but I don't see the political structure making that call just as of yet. So, but I've never seen the legal maneuvering made on the extradition, basically that they were fighting that he shouldn't go back because he's innocent. Well, it's not about an extradition hearing is simply an identity hearing to determine if this is in fact the person that's charged with a crime. You don't get to litigate it in a different state. So I don't really understand that. But I think, based upon some of the videos I've seen, he's got a pretty good case. He's got a lot of attorneys, a lot of money, so they can go out there and find a lot of witnesses. And that's where most cases really turn up and they develop. Most cases do not turn on the law. Most cases are won by who can find the best fact, right? Who can find the best witness with the best information that's going to swing the tide. The jury doesn't get to hear the law, and the law is usually written so much in favor for the prosecution, that you have to go. You just got to go try the case, like we did this last week, I might add. And well, we won. Okay, not to toot my horn that much, but it's pretty unusual to get a not guilty in federal court. And I've only done 2 trials this year because of the COVID crisis. And one was in February, kind of late February to March. Anyway, I was in trial. My guy was looking at mandatory minimum 10 years, not guilty. Then this last week, client could have pled guilty, but I didn't do it. Okay. But you understand, you're going to get probably 5 more years in custody for a crime you didn't do if you lose, because it could happen. I can't make promises or guarantees on what juries will do. Fortunately, the jury found him not guilty, and I found out he was actually released from custody. They wanted me to give him a ride. I'm like, I wasn't here at the time, so my staff said, no, we can't give our client a ride, particularly all the way home. We don't do that. So let's see here. Love the book. Book club would be great. Ryan M., I think it was Utah. He wanted it as well. Let's see here. What was that? In Powell's question, he was trying to ask for a lawyer. Not being arrested, didn't want to find wife. What suggestion would you make in this situation? Well, it's a weird thing. What a lot of people don't get when it comes to being interrogated by police. Okay. And I answer this question probably half a dozen times, maybe a dozen times a week. Somebody will call up and say, hey, I got arrested for a particular crime. And the question is, they didn't read me my rights. Is that illegal? The answer is maybe. It depends on what they do. You have to be in custody before you have to be advised of your Miranda rights. Bottom line. Now, obviously, if you're handcuffed, it's rather clear that you're in custody. You're not free to leave. Although there is a small exception under the law where you can be handcuffed for officer safety and not really be in custody. Okay. But for the most part, if you're in custody, you can't move. But where the cases truly get litigated are the cases where the client, the defendant, believes he cannot leave and his freedom is not really restricted. The officers will say, hey, thanks for coming in. Thanks for talking to me. Just want to let you know you're not in custody and you're free to leave at any time you want. You can get up and walk out of the police station. And of course, you have to litigate those issues. Well, could he really just get up and walk out? You said he could, but could he have walked out the front door on his own? Sometimes officers will say, well, no, probably not. You need a key card, all those kinds of things. So it really gets into specific facts as to whether that happens. And sometimes officers will say, you're not in custody. I'm interrogating you. So anything you say, it's still admissible, but they don't advise you. A lot of good detectives will say, just in case you say something and I have to arrest you, I'm going to advise you of your Miranda rights just in case, but you're free to go. Just doing this to warn you because I'm an extra safe guy when it comes to being a detective. I like the belts and suspender approach. Free to leave, but just in case you say something bad, why don't I do this? And I'll couch it in the sense that I'm not going to say that in case you say something bad. I'll do it in the sense of I'm just advising you because I'm a good guy and I want to make sure you don't come back later and say I didn't advise you. So even though you weren't under arrest, the officer still advises you, and bam, statements all come in. The easiest way to stop an interrogation, and nobody seems to ever say it, the magic words: lawyer, lawyer, lawyer. Okay? You don't even have to say it 3 times, but I highly recommend it 3 times because there's been a lot of studies out there that said people get things when they come in 3s. All right? Like snap, crackle, pop. You remember those 3. Lawyer, lawyer, lawyer. Say them 3 times. It's like clicking your heels and all the bad things will stop. Okay? And so if one is being interrogated, you say, lawyer, I want my lawyer. Now you can't be waffling either. You can't be saying, I think I may need to talk to a lawyer. Should I talk to a lawyer? Would it be a good idea if I talk to a lawyer? All of those have been found not to be invoking the word lawyer. I want my lawyer. And in case you understand, I want my lawyer, lawyer, lawyer. Once they say that, the police have to stop interrogating the individual. And if they wanted to reinitiate some sort of interview, let's say the guy says lawyer, 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 and then never gets a lawyer and they go back and talk to him, they have to make sure that he understands you have a right to an attorney and you're still talking to us knowing, freely, and voluntarily made, right? But sometimes that doesn't happen. So hopefully a glowing ember as it relates to the question about asking for a lawyer. You have to be clear. You have to be unequivocal that you want a lawyer. like I said, those waffling questions. Gee, I don't know. Should I get a lawyer? Wow, those questions seem serious. Am I being accused of something? Do you think I should get a lawyer? And then the detective always says, well, it's up to you, but how are we going to get to find out what's going on if you lawyer up? Because they're all going to tell you not to say a word. Exactly. And what is the number one fear of people to lawyer up? Any show of hands? That's right. They don't want to look guilty by exercising their constitutional rights. Can you believe that? That's true. They don't want to look guilty. Well, guess what? It's better to look guilty than to be found guilty. But no one ever thinks that far ahead. That's why any lawyer worth your salt, if the police come and knocking, you simply say, I want my lawyer. I don't care if you don't know a lawyer. You say, I want to talk to my lawyer, and they got to stop. And if they're going to arrest you and then they want to interrogate you, then they have to advise you of your right to an attorney. And guess what? You're entitled. They even tell you if you can't afford a lawyer, we'll get one for you. And if that happens, they'll get you the public defender if you can't afford one. But the bottom line is they have to stop the interrogation at that point. That's right. Lynette got it right because they look guilty. So yeah, it's only need to be Mirandized when you're in custody and they're asking you questions related to an offense, right? Could you imagine? They don't have to do it every time somebody's in custody. Somebody's in custody. Hey, what do you want for breakfast this morning? They don't have to Mirandize you. They're not intended. It's regarding a criminal matter where they're trying to elicit incriminating information. So yeah, let's see here. What would it be if you know you're innocent? Still a lawyer? Absolutely. Is it Anaya? Yes, absolutely. If you're innocent, all the more reason to lawyer up. Swear to God. Most people, and I tell you this, most of the time it's the defendant's own words that get them because they think they can talk their way out of it. Okay? Think about it. Think of that guy named Chris. What did he think he could do? He's going in there talking to him. Oh, yeah. I'll take a polygraph. I'll talk to you. I don't know. I just hope they find my family. I'm just really concerned out there. Where's my family? They knew all along he was the number one suspect, right? They can do that. And Mary has a question. Can they lie about lie detector results? Yes, the police can lie. There is a famous case. Went all the way to the Supreme Court. I can't think of the name off the top of my head. But the gist of it was back in the early days of the copier machine. And they were interrogating a guy. And every time he would answer a question, they would hit the button. And they had, the word like lie written on it. And it would come out there. It's like, oh, you're lying. And ultimately, he confessed. And in that particular case, the Supreme Court said it is okay for basically the police to lie to get people to basically talk. It just goes about how they go about doing it. They can't beat you up. They can't threaten you. They can't intimidate you in such a way. But lie detector tests, I'm telling you, I don't trust lie detector tests. They're a tool of interrogation used predominantly by the police to get people to talk, just like in that guy named Chris case, right? He's stonewalling him. Would you like to take a poly? Sure, let's take a polygraph test. He fails it miserably. What do? It's a tool of interrogation. Aw, Chris, you didn't do so well on that. Are you sure there isn't something you'd like to tell me? What is it that you're trying to go in on? And then they break into the read interrogation technique. a technique that's been known for more false confessions than any other interview technique ever. But usually what they do is they just try to get somebody to minimize something that they did. And like I said, the good example is the Chris case. They're talking there. The female detective is in the room. It's like, is there something going on? Did Shanann hurt the kids? And he's like, yeah, she did. She tried to hurt the kids and I had to do it. And of course, his later interview when they go up to see him up in, was it Minnesota, Wisconsin, wherever he is these days. He's like, yeah, I hadn't even thought of that. But it was based upon your question that it came out that I just kind of made that up at the time. Because we all know his guilty plea is he did it and he told them that he in fact had obviously done terrible things to his children. So those, that's why I'm saying polygraphs, it's a lie detector. You might as well go to the copier machine and say, ooh, I think you didn't do very well. Right. It's just a tool of interrogation to get people to talk. Now, most prosecutors these days don't put a whole lot of stock in them. They're always like, well, if you guys do a polygraph, you're going to have to use my guy. Yeah, no. So I don't even use them. Like, if you guys don't think they're of any value, I'm not going to waste my clients' time and money to do that. So yeah, lie detector tests, not good. And you saw how it worked so well for that guy named Chris. Would you like to take a polygraph? Any attorney worth his salt. Had that guy called anybody, we'll see. Now, going back, there's also another case in law school. I wish I had the name of it, but there was a case regarding where a guy was in custody and he was accused of killing, I think, children or something along those lines. And he was arrested for it. And he was in the police car and the police officers are up front talking and they're saying, wow, wouldn't it be nice if we only knew where we could find the body? Wouldn't it be nice to, give a nice, burial, for the family's sake and everything like that. And they kind of overcame the guy's will. He felt really bad. And guess what? Supreme Court said, you can't do that. You can't overcome their victim's will. Police officers are going to ask you questions. They got to say, hey, we think you did this. Did you do it? No. Oh, really? I got all these other people saying you did. Now the cops can lie about that, but the reality of it is they can still do that. So hopefully everyone that's watching tonight will never, ever, ever be in trouble and actually need an attorney. But if you do, just remember, keep your mouth shut until you can call one and say, I want my attorney. And this is a discussion about innocent people taking plea deals. It happens all the time. People plead guilty to get out of custody all the time. Mary Lopez, has anyone from YouTube ever requested you? I get calls and I try to talk to people if they call here, but nobody's ever said, I want Scott Reich. I think I showed you, didn't I show you my card last time? Was that last week I did that? Or maybe that was Patreon. I can't remember. But yeah, you need to keep your mouth shut. And this is on the back of my card. Okay, I've had this on the back of my business card for 20 years. Okay, learn it, know it, live it, right here in the back. Okay, I refuse to consent to any search of my premises, the location of my arrest, my car, or effects. I wish to exercise my rights under the 5th and 6th Amendments to remain silent and to have my attorney present during any questioning or lineup. If you ignore my exercise of these rights and attempt to procure a waiver, I wish to confer with my attorney prior to any conversation with the law enforcement agent on the subject of waiver. Right there, ladies and gentlemen. You ever get in trouble? You just say, hey, excuse me, can I get my wallet? I got to pull out this card really fast. At that point, that's the magic words. Lawyer, lawyer, lawyer. If I had to sum it up, lawyer, lawyer, lawyer. If I had to get even simpler, a fish never got caught by keeping his mouth closed. Bottom line. Miss Then just in case. Mary Lopez, I'm joining Patreon. Let's see. If you're innocent and they lie to you, they're threatening to frame you. Potentially, but I've had people that have said, hey, I'll say whatever you want. It wouldn't be the truth. But the best way to avoid that is simply by not saying anything. Then you don't have to worry about anything coming into court, whether you're falsely accused or whatever. I've tried to explain it to clients. If your client comes to you and they say, the police want to talk to me, okay? Think about it as like swinging at a piñata. We all know, you go to the parties, kids go to parties, they put the blindfold on them, they give them the bat or the broom handle, and they say, swing at the piñata, and they spin them around, right? And the little kid is here swinging away, and the crowd is reacting like, ooh, you're missing. Ooh, close one. You almost got it. When in reality, the piñata is like 6 feet away. That's the problem when you go in and you talk. Everybody wants to go in and talk and figure out like what I just went in and talked to figure out what was going on because I didn't know because I was innocent, but I just wanted to see kind of what they're thinking. Oh, okay. So I always love that when clients say I didn't talk. Oh, really? Well, why don't we wait and see, get the discovery, and then let's see. Why don't you tell me how long this non-interview took? Oh, no more than an hour. Yeah, no more than an hour. Of course, you find out that they've talked, and they've just like, what do you want me to do? You talk, I can't help you. Let's see here. See, Chris stating they were using tactics on him, and he didn't know the game. So it was unfair. Therefore, he needs a new trial. Duh. That's why he chose those tactics. Yeah. Glowing Ember. Listen, I'm telling you, Chris Watts is going nowhere. All right. I know a lot of people. There's some people. I mean, don't get me wrong. Crime Talk would probably go through the roof if there was a Chris Watts trial. We'd cover it, but it's not going to happen. It's simply not going to happen. He is going to stay in custody. He's not getting out. No judge is going to give him a 35C hearing. I'm sure there's going to be somebody that's going to tell him, oh, I know an attorney that can do it, or I'll help you draft it yourself, and then you can request court-appointed counsel, and it'll all be good. And, it's going to get denied, and he's going to appeal it, and it's going to get denied. And I'm telling you, the reason why the judges go through a plea, a Rule 11 advisement on the record is so that the judge can assess and make sure that it is a knowing, voluntary waiver of their rights, all of their constitutional rights that they're giving up when they plead guilty, to make sure they understand the rights they have, the rights they give up, and the possible penalties. That's the only thing that's going to matter. And to make sure that there were no side agreements on, going on. And that's why the judge states, like in the Watts case, it was simply, you're going to plead guilty and they'll not pursue the death penalty. Okay, sounds good. Everybody knew exactly what was going on. The court goes through the advisement of rights. You understand your right to have a trial. And trial, you have a right to have a jury trial. And at that jury trial, you have a right to an attorney to assist you. And if you couldn't afford an attorney, they would appoint one for you. And at that trial, you'd have a right to confront and cross-examine all witnesses called to testify against you. You'd have a right to see all evidence that is going to be brought in against you. You have a right to make the prosecution prove each and every element of the offenses beyond a reasonable doubt unanimously to that jury. And if even just one of those jurors said not guilty, guess what? On the counts of the one that they couldn't agree on, it would be a hung trial, hung jury, and they could have to do it again. At a trial, you have a right as a defendant to call witnesses in your own defense. If they wouldn't come voluntarily, you could subpoena them. And if there was costs involved, the court would pay for that if that was needed as well. At a trial, a defendant always has a right to testify or not to testify. And if the defendant chooses not to testify, and his counsel so requests, the judge would give the jury an instruction saying that you cannot use his silence against him in any way. And when you plead guilty, you also give up your right to an appeal, because if you went to trial and you lost, you have a right to an appeal to a higher court to see if legal errors were made that resulted in an unfair trial, not just because you didn't like the result, but there were actually legal errors made. That's what's decided on appeal. Did some evidence come in? Was something said that was so prejudicial that resulted in an unfair trial that you get a do-over? And about 2% of all cases that go up on appeal ever come back. 2%. So when these guys say, I'll take my chances on appeal, okay, old 2% are there. That's going to happen, right? So that's why that guy named Chris is never going to get a new trial. Why? Because the judge went through all of that, the rights, the possible penalties, and to make sure there's no promises other than what's been explained on the record. So anyone who thinks that that is going to take place is not, it's just not happening. It's unrealistic. And what did the court do? I think it was Judge Kopkow that was the judge on that particular case. He said, have you had enough time to talk to your lawyers? Are you satisfied with your lawyers? Right? And what else did he say in the interview when he was up in prison with the 3 agents from FBI, CBI, and the Frederick Police Department? What did he say? Yeah, my attorneys didn't want me to plead guilty. It was my decision. They came to me and I said, I think he may have said, yeah, let's just get this over with. So there's nothing there. There was no psychological coercion in that interrogation room. I've seen psychological manipulation take place. I had a case once where the judge, the court threw out the entire confession based upon psychological coercion. And what that means is normally if, a statement's made and they didn't Mirandize somebody and a statement comes in, the remedy is that the prosecution can't use that statement in its case in chief. But if a defendant gets up and testifies differently than what he told the police, he can be impeached upon that. But when your witness statement is thrown out, your defendant's statement is thrown out because of psychological coercion, it's thrown out because it was obtained basically by unlawful force. It's the equivalent of literally beating somebody. Guess what? That statement is completely and forever gone. And the client can get up and testify to whatever he wants. It was a very weird ethical situation because, what was thrown out was pretty close to the truth. So I can't ethically put somebody on the stand to testify something differently. Thank goodness we didn't have to, to deal with that particular issue. But, that's the difference, so to speak, as it relates to being thrown out for Miranda violation, being thrown out for force or some sort of psychological coercion type of thing. So maybe that's a little too far in the weeds for some people. If it is, sorry. But yeah, it's just the way it is. Let's see. Susan, super chat. I want a card too and a red cup. Susan, look at the mug. Isn't that a good looking mug? We can get the little diagram on it. Isn't that cool? I think we got them below. I think they're right down on the list there. Go to Teespring, get yourself a mug. Maybe what we can do, maybe we can put something where somebody could print that card out on our website. Think you can make that happen, Frank? Yeah. We could scan it. People could print it out and then, tag it. I actually saw it was a client had his house raided and they were taking pictures throughout the house. And right next to the phone was my business card that was tacked right to it. There were 2 of them, one with the front and then one to the back. So at least somebody was listening. And the cops always get a chuckle out of it too. Yeah, let me see. We'll see if we can't do that, or somehow we can, we'll print it, and you can like scan it and go to a page and like print it out. Best legal advice you'll ever get. And it's free. Who doesn't get like free stuff, particularly from attorneys, right? I mean, I wish I could give everybody a mug. I can't give everybody a mug, but you can buy one. They're pretty inexpensive. They really are. And just think, then you can take a picture of it and you can send like your mugshot and we can put it up. We could put it up on Instagram, but I need people to buy mugs, right? I'm trying. I wish I could. Maybe if everybody came here, we could get mugs, you know, or maybe, I don't know, maybe we'll get a big sponsor and somebody want to buy a bunch of mugs for everybody. We could try that. Oh, somebody, Frank, yeah. What's your sweatshirt? Frank, do you want to come show your sweatshirt?
I'm shy.
Oh, he's shy. All right. Yeah, we got cool sweatshirts too. And I thought I had my other stuff should be coming. Okay, here comes Frank. Look, he's going to show the cool sweatshirt. Oh, got to go low. Look, see, look, there's Frank. Crime Talk. Hardest working man in show business. So yeah, we'll try to do that. Yeah, order a mug, people. Order a mug. It's not like, you know, I'm not quitting my day job because I'm selling a bunch of mugs. They're that inexpensive. Really, they are. Let's see. Can we get you to send out your card to us? I'd love to have one in my pocket. We're going to come up there, Glowing Ember, with something where we can put it on our webpage or my page, ScottReisch.com. And also, if you go to ScottReisch.com, you can sign up for our weekly newsletter. It's free. And we send out kind of a bunch of information that maybe didn't make it to the daily show, but still rather interesting. And, you know, hopefully you like it. And it's free. And we don't sell your email list or anything like that. It's just extra stuff. And if you don't like it, you can always delete it. Some days, let's face it, some days you have more time to look at emails and other days you have less and you just go through it. Yeah. So order that sweatshirt. There you go. And I got a shirt. I could have swore I ordered shirts, but it's got the Crime Talk, like black t-shirt, you know, hopefully one of those will come too. We're working on it. Let's see here. A couple more questions before we go. Frank's the man. That's right. Hardest working man in show business.
Thank you.
What do you think of making of a murderer cases, Christine? Well, I think those are rather interesting. They're the post-conviction counsel in those cases did a really good job. You know, obviously I can't remember his name, got him a new trial. And then the appellate court said, yeah, no, you don't get a new trial. And, you know, there's been a lot of cases where, you know, people claim their actual innocence. But for the most part, the trial was clean. And if you have a clean trial and there's not a lot of appellate issues, you don't get appellate review on a lot of issues. If the defense counsel doesn't object, guess what? That issue's waived unless it's something considered constitutional in nature, which would be plain error, which basically means that was so egregious, the judge should have stepped in, but didn't. So we'll do it on appellate review. But it's a super high standard and it's not on every issue. And just because the client says I'm innocent doesn't mean you get a new trial. You had your day in court. That's why it's so important to get yourself the right attorney, because you only get one bite at the apple. And it doesn't get any less expensive to undo a case. You know, chances are you're not going to. Remember, 2%. Only 2% of cases that go up on appeal get reversed. So, you know, I've had people come in and hire me once and they said my price was too expensive. I said, all right, good luck. I wish you well. Got convicted. The family came back, hired us for an appeal, and we got reversed on appeal. But when they came back and they said, well, you were only going to quote me X for the trial. Now you want me to do the appeal? I'm like, well, yeah, you made it twice as difficult to get you any relief. And so they paid it, and they agreed they should have paid it the first time. Maybe they would have not had to pay more for the appeal, but that's their decision. You know, it's like all things in life. You get what you pay for. You don't always want to go with the cheapest item on the shelf, particularly when it comes to one's freedom, no doubt. So, yeah, um, yeah, Shanann did not hurt those girls. It's just ridiculous. So many people would even entertain this idea. He confessed to it, and this is what I always said when the case was going on, because I was kind of like, yeah, I remember we had a video. It's like, did he get played or duped? Because I was like, my God, he gave up the death penalty to go to prison for the rest of his life. Guess what? No one's convicted anybody in the death penalty here in the state of Colorado in a long, long time. And guess what? It's probably not going to happen because they've since now repealed the death penalty. So did he get any exchange in exchange for the bargain? I talked about that. But guess what? Even if he had gone to trial on the theory that he did not harm those kids, it doesn't matter. Why? Because he confessed to killing Shanann. Oh, and last time I heard, yeah, that's right. First degree murder after deliberation, life in prison without parole. So, even if he had tried that, there's no defense of, well, somebody did it, therefore I have to do it. They did this to the girls. That's not an excuse under the law. So it's just nonsense. I think a lot of people are trying to somehow get in with Chris, that guy named Chris, and they're trying to work it for their own benefit. There was that call that we put up, and I don't know who it was, but she's going like, oh, I'm going to call your mom afterwards in the call. And I don't know if this guy is, and I say jailhouse lawyer, was he like, there's a term jailhouse lawyer for those who aren't familiar, that go to jail and people start taking advice from the jailhouse lawyer who's like, oh, I knew a guy who had a cousin who had a case just like yours and he walked. So I'm not sure why your attorney's not doing a good job and you're still in here. That's a jailhouse lawyer. You're going to draft some motions for some people. Really? Well, if you're so freaking smart, why are you on the inside, giving all this legal advice, but you can't get yourself out of it? So jailhouse lawyers, I always tell people, don't take advice from jailhouse lawyers. It's ridiculous. In fact, I got a call the other day from a guy who was housed with my guy that we went to trial on, and he was claiming that he had drafted the motion that got this case dismissed. I'm like, no, it was my trial abilities and lack of evidence on the government's part. And I said, because every motion we filed, we lost. The judge dismissed them. So how could that have happened? And I'm certainly not going to take a motion from a jailhouse lawyer, for that particular matter. So jailhouse lawyers. And that's what I think that the guy named Chris, and that audio that we have, the call with him. And I don't know who's on the other end. He's like, oh yeah, that's what the police do. It's just so unfair. You were railroaded. Oh, we'll help you out. Really? That guy should put his money where his mouth is. Go pay somebody $50,000 to do an investigation for a 35C. See what happens. And my guess is they come up with nothing, or they come up with something. It's like, oh, sorry, we lost, but I guess we'll just appeal it. So we need another $50,000. So Yosemite Jen, Scott, did Miss Fetal ever do her formal apology to the author she plagiarized her book from? Not to my knowledge. Someone may have said that it's taken place. I don't recall ever seeing it. Let's see. Who's this? BJ. I'd like this. I was a paralegal for 9 years, and I promise you, not one I ever worked with for had the attitude and outlook on a case like you do. I would love to be a paralegal in your office. Well, thanks. We try to do a good job. We try to keep our people happy. We have paralegals here. We have I have one that's been here with me 12 years. Yeah. We try to keep people happy here. Let's see. Oh, yeah. The prison call case. There you go. Yep. Let's see here. Glowing Ember. Took a screenshot and your head was covering part of it to me. Let's see here. Scott, when you first started your channel, you had a Crime Talk room behind you. Looked like a screenshot where your head was covering part of it. And it said, me talk. I have to find it and send it. Yeah, that'd be funny. Yeah, and I did hear that Fetal was coming out with a new book, but I bet her publisher will probably go through that with a fine-tooth comb this time around. Let's see here. Are the lawyers that say you don't pay unless we win a good choice in a motor vehicle fatality case? Well, Annabelle, if the case is here in Colorado, we have attorneys in my office that can help you out with that. But most people take a case on a contingency fee basis in personal injury matters, which means the attorney doesn't get paid until you get a settlement. And most attorneys aren't going to take a case unless they feel that they're going to achieve getting some money out of that particular case. You can always go hire an attorney and pay them by the hour or pay them by a flat fee to do a case, but most won't do it that way. Some will, but most of them say most people don't have the resources to go hire a lawyer for a personal injury matter. And so that's a way that allows people to get representation where basically any monies come out of the settlement. Now, you can't do that unless, certainly don't do that in the criminal defense world. You need your money pretty much up front, bottom line, because if you go to prison, chances are you're not going to get paid at all. So you got to get that money up front. Civil cases, nobody's going to jail. Laugh out loud. I bet there's a guy, unknown guy that's questionable prison call. That'd be right down his alley. You know, who knows for sure? But I think I've seen one video of that particular guy and I was just like, yeah, whatever. Let's see here. Oh, Mama Pink, you missed saying happy birthday to me last week. Can you do it today? Happy birthday, Mama Pink. Sorry, didn't realize or see that go by last week. Sorry. Darn, in Alberta, Canada. Yeah, just my advice, Annabelle, if you're looking for an attorney, get somebody that's experienced, get somebody that has the resources to handle the case. And if they tell you it's not a good case, don't get upset and say, I'm going to go find somebody that's going to tell you what you want to hear. Go to an experienced attorney, get an honest assessment of the case. The best day for any personal injury case is the day that it walks in the door, because it goes down exponentially after that, because, you find out people haven't been treating. Oh, maybe they didn't have their seatbelt on. There's always something that'll be going on like that. Yeah. YouTube has never sent me my plaque. No. I have email documentation saying, hey, please send me my plaque. Frank's done it too. Nothing. I don't know why. I am just like the abandoned child of YouTube. No respect. They demonetize my videos because we talk about true crime, and they don't send me my plaque. I mean, not that I need it. I guess not that I'm entitled to it, but don't tell me you get a plaque if you get to 100,000. I could be at 150 before they even do anything, or 200 the way things go there at YouTube. You ever try getting anybody at YouTube to talk with you at all? Oh my God, it's the worst thing ever. Yeah. So anyway, all right. Well, we have gone live for an hour tonight, hour and 9 minutes to be exact at this particular moment. Thank you all for tuning in. We're going to go do some Patreon shortly after this. So if you haven't joined Patreon, please do so. And there you can also call in. So please join Patreon, call in. Think about it. You can ask me anything. And Patreon has a much smaller group. And you can ask me anything you want. Free legal advice, your opportunity. And it only costs you what? The minimum is $5 to be a Patreon member. You can call in. That's all that free legal advice you're going to get. So we will just leave it at that. Now, before we go, I forgot to do this again. I apologize. My fault. please go get a background subscription. Search crimetalksearch.com, sign up, get the information. All right. I'm telling you, we did one real quick. I won't say who it is, but it's rather brief. Initials may possibly say NK. I don't know what that means. NK, right? You can get that information. You can see. Now, this report only came back as 7 pages. We did one the other day. It came back this thick. It was probably 80 pages long. So it just depends on what you do. But you won't be disappointed. So go to crimetalksearch.com, sign up, or you can go to Crime Talk Search offers. We've got lots of other cool stuff where if, good products, we wouldn't put our name on if we didn't think they were good. So go there as well. All right. Thanks for watching tonight on our Crime Talk Live Tuesday night. We will see the Patreon members in about 15 minutes. Have a great night, and thanks for watching Crime Talk.